Everyone. Jordan Bennett, everyone. Jordan's in the house, rocking us out. Yay. That just woke us up, didn't it? I'm like awake now. Yes. I apologize if I sound a little nasally, but I'm kind of trying to get over a cold, which has been going around with everyone, so we're just kind of helping each other over and over again. And it looks like we're having a few little difficulties with the projector, so just be patient with us. The title of the talk today is The Three Faces of God Equals Prayer. Three Faces of God equal prayer. Now last week we talked about sex. We talked about sex, religion, and God. And I'm thinking, well, if we're talking about sex, religion, and God, where does this all fall out? It falls out really around God, doesn't it? And how we perceive God. Who is God? What is God? Is there a God? And I thought this is a great time to look at how we relate with our higher power. And I'll tell you my story. I grew up very rigidly religious with a God that was very punishing, always looking at you, always judging you. Even if you thought something, you could burn in hell. And then I found unity. And I found unity through friends who were understanding my personal struggle, because at that point I was really angry with God. My affinity was for Job. You remember Job in the book of Job and all the pestilence and famine and everything that happened to him? I identified, and that was my mantra that I walked around in New York City being. And then I found unity. And I came into unity, and the first thing that I learned was that there is no such thing as a punishing God. Yes, that works for me. So no man on the throne, no heaven above, looking down, no book writing my name down or anything like that. So I'm like, all right. Then I learned that God is immanent and transcendent within me and within everything and everyone. I'm like, that makes more sense to me. I'm with that. And then I learned that we're all co-creators, that we create the life that we want. I thought, wow, I'm empowered. I could change things. And then I learned about prayer, something called affirmative prayer. And the first quote that I'm going to show you there comes right from the unity.org website. And it says this: Unity uses affirmative prayer. Rather than begging or beseeching God, this method involves connecting with the Spirit of God within and asserting positive beliefs about the desired outcome. Affirmative prayer is the same method of prayer Jesus taught when he said, "So I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours." Now, when we talk about affirmative prayer, what this means is, instead of saying, "Dear God, please help me with a great job," we shift that to say, "I am guided to my perfect job, my perfect employment." That's what we talk about when we talk about affirmative prayer. So I'm like, all right, I'm down with that. And then I get to seminary. And I'm taking this class called Prayer and Meditation. I'm excited. Yeah, it's because all the other stuff has been so the history of the Bible and the history of this and religion this. And so now it's like, my milieu, so I think, prayer and meditation. Until I discover that part of our grade is going to be on how we structure affirmative prayer. I'm like, oh. And then we had to say it out loud. We had to pray out loud in front of other people, our students and our professors. Oh my God. No. Now, you're talking to someone who's been in unity for over 20 years. And I was petrified that I would get it wrong. That they would look down on me and go, oh, she doesn't even know how to do affirmative prayer. Right? And in that class, I realized that there were several other ministers who were feeling the same way, by the way. And in that class is where I learned about the three faces of God. And in that model, what it did for me is it just allowed me. It allowed me to be. It allowed me to connect in the way that works for me without any judgment. Because when we come in unity, we think we're so evolved that we don't judge people anymore. Until we hear someone pray to him, and then we go, right? So what I'm here to do is tell you that how we relate to God, our outlook of how we think God is how we experience God. Did you get that? So the three faces of God is not the be-all and the end-all, because here we are as humans. We have limited knowledge in a way because we're trying to define the undefinable. We're trying to say what God is and what God is not, what God wants, what God doesn't want, what is okay with God, what's not okay with God. Do we really know? I got to tell you, I don't. But what the three faces of God concept allows us to do is it allows us to look at a new way or a different way of seeing God and connecting with God. So when I look at the three faces of God, the first one that's going to come up there is the I am. So I'm going to talk about what are the three faces, and most importantly, how do we access that aspect of God? Because I can talk theory all day long, but if you don't know how to apply it or how to get to it, it's worthless. All right? So the first face of God is the I am, God within. We get that really clear here in Unity. And the way that we access that is through meditation and through the silence. So that's the first one. The second one is God as thou or you. God as thou or you. And that is a beloved relationship. It's relational, beloved relationship. And how we access that is through prayer, chanting, devotionals in each other. That's how we access that aspect. And the third aspect is God as life, nature, the universe, allness. And the way that we access that is through our five senses. When we're out in nature and we see something that's just amazing, and we know there is something greater than ourselves. So those are the three approaches. Now, in most religions, what they do is they focus on the one aspect of God. And in our Western culture, we tend to see God in a particular manner, one of those faces. But what happens when we only see God as one? We become a little off balance, right? Because if I only see God as God within me, what could happen with that ideology? Not that you know about it, right? What could happen with that ideology? Arrogance, egomaniac, yes. All about me. That's right. If I am in the second face of God only, where there is this deity outside of me that is so powerful and so all, then what happens there? What happens there? Powerlessness. What else? I'm not responsible. Blind obedience. separation, big, big, big one, separation. Say again? Detachment, good. And thirdly, if I am only looking at God and identifying God as the allness, how does that throw me off balance? Overwhelmed, bingo. Overwhelmed and destiny, right? It's all destiny. Okay. So for us, what we need is we need to be balanced in those three faces, the way that we look at, wow, they're going somewhere else, but that's okay. So where I am is, I'm going to talk first about the first face of God. And what you should be seeing, honey, is the lotus position, purple. Okay, maybe not. Aww. I'm sorry, we're having some technical difficulties, so we'll just move with it. So the first face of God, that is where we experience ourselves as the divine. We experience ourselves as the divine. And we awaken to the fact that we are eternal. That the essence of who we are transcends space and time. That is a powerful awakening when we are aware that that is part of the beingness of God. That's pure consciousness. And then I'm going to skip over to the third face of God. And the third face of God is when we are just in awe. And when we are in awe, look at that. Knowing that that magnificence was created, came into being. That awe. I frequently talk about being that childlike person in awe. It makes us realize the immenseness that we are both a part of and also how small we are in the cog of everything. We are macro and micro. Now, I skipped over the second face because that's the one that we really kind of have difficulty with in general. More so in unity than anywhere else. Because most of us that come to unity are refugees, meaning that we come from another religion seeking to find that place that honors what we believe, what we know, what we know intrinsically. And we arrive here and it's like, oh, thank you. I knew I wasn't insane, right? And so we get here, and then we don't want to hear anything about God. We don't want to hear anything about Jesus. We don't want to hear anything about the Bible. Because we've been Bible thumped. We've been hit over the head. We've been abused by people telling us who God is and who God is not. How accepting you are or are not to God. But true transformation comes when we take off the blinders and say, how can I look at this in a different light? How can I transform that belief into what is truth for me? And so we do that with the second face of God. One of the quotes that I have here is from a professor of mine who I love. His name is Robert Brummett, and I know many of you have read several of his books. And he says this about the second face of God. The second face of God offers a very intimate perspective. We may be reluctant to use second face, lest it be seen as putting God up in the sky, but that's not necessarily so. Think of how we would relate to a parent, a sibling, a partner, or a lover. It's a quality of relating to God with the heart, which can be missing in the first and third person. In the second phase of God, you get to know that you are the beloved. And there's a quote there that says, as you get to that place of knowing that this is a holy other, that you get to define yourself radically as one beloved by God. I'll say that again. You get to define yourself radically as one beloved by God. This is the true self. Every other identity is illusion. And that's a quote from Brennan Manning. And it's when we know that truth in that beloved relationship and we surrender to that, that is when we get grace. We get to have grace for ourselves. We get to have grace for others. And to know that to love another person is to see the face of God. So, 3 faces of God. A concept. Yeah, it's a concept. It's something, though, that's really workable for us because it doesn't have to do with religion. Anyone can be this. Anyone can connect this way. So, for me, the 3 faces of God equal prayer is really about how we change the world, how we make this world into a world that works for all. Because if I am showing up as the I am, first face of God, clear that I am divine, clear that I am here to manifest my divinity in love, in joy, in abundance, then I am in that present moment awareness, right here, right now, having that connection with someone that I want to hear everything that's going on for and with them. Second face of God, that you are divine, that when I look at you, there can only be love. Because you are an aspect of me. You are an aspect of God. You are an aspect of all of us. That means that you deserve to be abundant. You deserve to have health. You deserve to have great jobs. You deserve to be seen as a beautiful being, regardless of your skin, regardless of your age, regardless of your size, regardless of any of that. And lastly, knowing that it is all God. It is all God. And in that is so much awe and wisdom, in that everyone that we touch, everything that we see, every animal that breathes on us is of God. And so in that is my need to care for the animals of the earth, the water, the ocean, nature. And so that's how we start that revolution of a world that works for all in these 3 faces of God. Thank you. Jordan?